also occupied long time ago, and during the 20th centuries, and also North Korean Communist and Chinese Communist parties leaders say bloody alliance against the USA, but I am doubt in their heart ceaseless conflict between Chinese nationalism,
yeah.
Chinese ethnocentrism, and the Korean nationalism, centering on history, centering on both countries' territory. This story is many years of history, maybe probably 5,000 years of conflict between the Han people of China and the Korean people.
Yeah, good.
Yes. The Korean people remember history. Chinese and the Japanese invaded, occupied the Korean territory. But no, the American conquered, occupied the Korean territory. Therefore, 75 million of Koreans should love the America, the United States of America, if we teach true history to all of Korean people. China's communist organ newspaper also never wrote North Korean formal country name when Kim Jong-il, supreme leader of North Korea, he visited China in April, maybe in April and August this year. Just the Chinese Communist organ newspaper reported simply chairman of the military committee, Kim Jong-il, visited China without omitting North Korean country's name. Like Chinese government didn't write or publish when Taiwan leader visited China. They didn't mention the Republic of China, but just the Taiwan leader. Now, today's China seems to think North Korea, one of the Chinese provinces.
Yeah.
The motivation why the Han people of China built the Chinese Great Wall was to protect the Han people from the ancient Korean and Mongolian invasion or expansion into the Han people lived. There are more than 5,000 years of conflict, I already told, and distrust between Koreans and including Mongolian and Chinese. Korean including Mongolian and Chinese. Without understanding this, we can't make good foreign policy. We cannot make a good U.S. foreign policy to the East Asia.
천안함 사태 이후 특히 중국은 소위 출구 전략 차원에서 김일성 아들 김정일, 그 다음 김정은 이 세 사람들을 설득하여 이제 미국과 접촉을 하면서 육자 회담에 복귀하려고 하는 움직임이 나타나고 있습니다. 우리가 한때 미국과 한국 종속 관계였다 해서 지금 평등 수평적 관계에 있는데 북한, 노스코리아와 차이나 중국들 그들의 혈맹이나 협력 관계가 돈독한 것을 알고 있으나 앞으로도 계속해서 21세기에는 북한, 노스코리아와 차이나와의 관계가 그 협력 관계가 계속 유지될 것인지 한번 의문을 가져봅니다. 박사님 의견 어떻습니까? China and the US can become a real alliance.
In some respect, two countries, China and the USA and China, make cooperation in international affairs. However, it's not really easy to become real alliance. Chinese became a semi-colony. The reason why the China became a semi-colony by Western powers, including the British Empire after the Opium War and the Nanjing Treaty by the British Empire or Anglo-Saxon power. They have antagonism and fear of the West, including USA. They are also too ambitious to rule over the world or expanding into all over the world. Based on 5,000 years of Chinese ethnocentrism, China is the center of the world as the master nation to rule over the world. This Chinese view on history is particular, different from British, American, other countries. So in conclusion, USA and China may make some cooperation for some purpose, but not easy to become a real alliance, because in this world only one sun and only one moon. We don't have two suns.
dr.rhee 감사합니다. 천안함 사태 어쨌든 간에 이 천안함 사태로 인해 가지고 특히 우리 한반도에 유익한 도움이 되는 전화 이복의 기회가 되지 않나 그런 기대도 갖고 있는데, 어쨌든 우리 미국 아메리카가 대아시아 정책에 있어서 어떤 정책을 추진해야만이 하는 것이 미국 국익에 도움이 되고 또 우리 한국 코리아에 도움이 될 수 있는지 한번 관찰해 보시죠.
I think the USA, the best foreign policy to Asia is two. One is the balance of power policy to Asia. The other one is the open door policy for freedom and democracy, free trade, investment, economic policy.
네.
Particularly to the East Asia, Japan, Korea, China. From geopolitical point of view, the Korean Peninsula is so important for the American interest and national security. A nation who controls the Korean Peninsula may control Asia. A nation who controls Asia may threaten security of the Pacific Ocean and the USA.
예.
There was a good example in the 20th century. Japan attacked Pearl Harbor to conquer America. That attack based on the Japanese famous argument, the so-called the conquering Korea argument, is conquering Korea is conquering Asia. Conquering Asia is conquering Russia. Conquering Russia is conquering America. After Japan defeated Russia in the Russo-Japanese War in 1905, they prepared to war against the USA, finally attack Pearl Harbor to conquer American continent. Same mentality is not changing in Asia. China seriously tried to expand her power in the Korean Peninsula to take hegemony in the Pacific Ocean. In these days, China threatened the USA to destroy American warships if American warships come to the Yellow Sea between the Korea and China. China has been extorting also ancient Asian history, which Koreans rule over huge Chinese territory as if the Chinese rule of Manchuria and other Chinese territory.
Yeah.
Not only Chinese, but also Japanese extorted many East Asian histories to control Korean Peninsula, the Korean Peninsula and Asia.
I see.
The American leaders must pay attention to these invisible expansionist ambitions finally to strengthen American national security. Finally, maybe conquer America. Unfortunately, many of American scholarly world and the political society are under the Chinese and Japanese colonial legacy, which make American students and the national leaders people not to know truth of history. Ignorance of history will make untrue image of Asian countries and cause to make an unwise policy decision to damage American national interest and the peace of Asia. We must not forget there are so many honest and good Chinese and Japanese people who love truth of history, freedom, democracy, and peace. I have so many good Chinese friends and Japanese friends who share with our goals of freedom, democracy, peace. We have to help China take the open door policy for freedom for Chinese people and Han people and the other ethnic people, such as Tibetans, Koreans, Mongolian, Manchu, and other peoples. Extortion of history and communist dictatorship, ultra-nationalism come from ignorance. Unicracy must destroy ignorance for freedom and democracy and civilization. The best U.S. foreign policy to Asia is not to allow any single country to control the Korean Peninsula, but in a balance of power to help Korea play a role to make a balance of power with the American USA. For effective efforts, Korea, Mongolia, Philippines, Australia, Thai, Vietnam, New Zealand, Indonesia, Thailand, Chinese liberal, Tibetan, Mexico, Canada, Israel, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, Morocco, Turkey, and Japan, and the Pacific Rim countries, and the American continent countries with the USA must establish toward the Pacific Cooperation System or Union and the Triple Union, AAA, or America, Asia, and African Union under the great leadership of the United States of America. It's important for Asian countries to support the USA leadership and mutual cooperation toward the such ideal goals in various ways. The powerful Pacific and AAA Union under the American leadership will make this world an ideal